Now, Monday 7th of July sees the release of a new record, a new album by the Manic Street Preachers, Futurology, which comes hot-ish on the heels. Only 9 months after Rewind the film. Nicky and James join us from London. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Both slightly lurgified today, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's just because we spent 3 days with each other talking in the same room. Just is enough to ruin anyone's life.
A lot of wasted oxygen.
As you two know very well.
Yeah, well, Stuart and I would have separated you because we've got this new thing. We're now employed as the snog patrol at the new Manchester Library. Apparently, the little alcoves where people can canoodle, and we're putting a stop to all.
So it's hottish on the heels of Rewind the film. A very different sounding record, though, isn't it? And that's by construction, by intent, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Rewind the film was very inward looking, but the sense of place was very much lyrically me in Wales, staring into the mirror like an R.S. Thomas. But Futurology is much outward, a celebration of ideas, emotion, and travel, and all things we are privileged enough to experience.
Yeah.
So it really is a European travel. I mean, there is certain music that you play it while you travel. What's that? I heard one. Is that David Holmes record that sounds fantastic when you drive along the way at night. So it was like that of you on tour in Europe, was it?
Yeah, we did a tour a couple of years ago, National Treasures, and obviously we've done it a lot, but just reconnected that kind of... The idea that art, music, anything, film, breaks down all barriers, even though Europe is so different, so strange angles to it.
Yeah.
Travel all the way through it, you start in Antwerp, end up Berlin, kind of feel deep to it.
Yeah.
So much inspiration.
Yeah, and you can't have known, obviously, but it came out, brilliant. It came out sort of at a period when our relationship to Europe has been all over the news agenda, hasn't it? So,
it has, yes. There are a couple of angles on the album. Found its way into the site.
Yeah, okay.
And what's it like? I mean, people talk about legendary studios, and legendary is overused generally, but I guess Hansa in Berlin genuinely is, isn't it?
I mean, there are certain things that you expect if you play barons and get told.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get there, it's everything told. Yeah, again, we did some at Hansa Studios. You've got Black Fuzz, the Saxo, etc. You're trying to match the old Black Chairs reality. I'd like to be confounded, say it's true.
Right. Yeah.
And does the sound of the record, we're going to hear it for people who've not heard it yet, it's a fantastic record, and it's the sound of it, which evokes, Simple Minds, Kraftwerk, sort of that very, that sort of futurist sound that was prevalent in the 80s. Does that reflect sort of stuff that you grew up with?
Yeah, I think for, in particular for James' early minds, that Up to Sparkling was his kind of greatest
Empire and Dance and those records.
Dance, Sons of Fascination, Sister Fiend's Call.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just weird, it's just, all had a couple of reading to Ice Drinks and stuff as a fifth. That's all seemed, Germans don't actually seem to influence stuff to Inks, just kind of...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they're not very celebrated in their homeland, then?
Not as much as you think.
Do they get played on the radio?
I stood in a new bat.
I'd like to find that radio station that would, yeah. It's just a lot of drills.
I know.
Clapton new buildings with all
famously played with Shawaddy Waddy. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They did a gig with Shawaddy Waddy at the ICA once, yeah.
Leicester's fast.
Absolutely. I would really love to have been at that.
I think
Kasabian
might have
and Shawaddy Waddy gig.
Yeah, sorry, Kasabian. Sorry.
And I'm sure they would concede.
Yeah.
I was out on my best mate Phil Walmsley, Whammo's Stag Night in Preston, and we went out from the French bistro. We thought we'll go to Clouds Disco. There's bound to be a band on. I'd Stuart's End of Knowing Band. What were the chances? What were the chances for a Stag Night out in Preston?
Doing all the hits.
Yeah,
Taking in a basket and kind of industrial.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's play.
Hear something.
I suppose this song, Europa. This is kind of a touchstone for the sound of the album. Is it for the uninitiated?
It is. Yeah. We had this tagline of post-punk disco rock. Nina Hoss, who sings on the record. Alex Silva produced a lot of the record. He worked on the Holy Bible. Wanted to work with Alex again. He has a room in Hansa Studios in Berlin. His partner were a big fan of his ways. She kind of adds that Germanic discipline to the singing, right on the beat.
It's fantastic.
Dominatrix, kind of. Feels like we're being whipped.
Jesus.
Well, let's hear it. This is Europa Geht Durch Mich, Manic Street Preachers.
David Stoke says this is the best Manic song in years. So, David Stoke writes it. Yeah.
It's great stuff.
Europa Geht Durch Mich was sort of Europe runs through me, goes through me. Is that it?
Yeah, the original sort of English version was called Europe Passes Through Me, and then I sort of did a rough translation. It's very, it's tough doing literal translations, as anyone knows, so that's the best I could do.
It's got a fantastic kind of concrete, new brutalist beat to it, Dan, hasn't it?
Oh, I'm going to nick that off you.
Well,
that's fine, yeah.
With that in mind, let's talk about futurism. It's called Futurology, and it's got a bit of that vibe of the futurists. I know you've been tweeting and writing about them recently, because you've been hanging out in some of their old haunts, haven't you?
Yeah, we did. We did a festival in Bologna the other week, and... this is kind of Manic's world at its best. I was in the hotel, and I'd come back early, and the turn-down service came at 8 o'clock, and it was the best turn-down service ever. The lady gave me a book.
Right.
Which said...
I'm sort of glad that sentence finished like that, to be honest.
The book was Futurism in Bologna.
Right.
And I thought, whoa, well, this is better than just a new pillow and a chocolate on the side. And I read that, and then I found out that the first futurist exhibition was in the basement of the hotel.
Wow.
And then went for a walk the next day in the famous towers in Bologna, thought they looked familiar, and realised that they're on the cover of She Is Suffering, which was a painting by the German painter Kippenberger.
Yeah.
So that sums up Manic's world easily.
Nobody else in the party got a copy of this futurist book slipped under their door.
Except me.
But their ideas are kind of, there's that sort of vibe going through the record, isn't there, about speed and distance and, embracing the future.
There is that. There's that whole element of the expressionism as well, Die Brücke movement in Berlin. The idea that this is what we feel, not necessarily what we see, that the kind of old painting of rich people with their families having picnics, that's over.
Yeah.
Here's a black square. And that to me, that appeals to our punk rock sensibilities, like the futurists as well. Marinetti was just there writing letters, sending them out across Europe on his own, writing manifestos, which is what we did at the start.
Very like you, yeah. I was going to say that's very like you. And you said, I think, Nicky, that it's a kind of companion, a sort of companion to the Holy Bible, which had that similar kind of strict kind of vibe.
It's more optimistic, it's more a celebration of ideas rather than a lyrical treatise on the failings of humanity. Whereas that physical intent, that post-punk kind of brutalism, in a much more, it's a more retro-futuristic way.
Right.
Well, that's, I think, a great trick. Simultaneously retro and futuristic. I think that is a really intoxicating notion.
Well, like French Disco by Stereolab. Yeah. To me, that's everything about retrofuturism in 4 minutes.
And as usual, or as has become usual, there are some interesting kind of other singers on there. I mean, following on from, Mac and Hawley and people who you work with, one of the most beautiful of male voices, Green Gartside, is on this, and Between the Clock and the Bed. I mean, James, as a singer, is that something you've increasingly come to enjoy at this stage of the Manics, is singing with other singers?
It is, yeah. I mean, I think and also it's no accident that kind of female vocalists tend to fit into our tracks really well, because
Georgia Ruth has done a lovely song with you on this called Divine Youth. I love that track.
Yeah, she's amazing on that. Well, I sing quite high, so kind of female vocalists always fit into our music well, and I think I've said it before, I just had a feeling that on the 12th album, other people might be able to kind of sing these songs a bit better than me, or they might actually just find the nuances in the lyrics rather than my kind of vinegary kind of boom and bluster.
And Between the Clock and the Bed, the one that Green sings on, of course, that's an Edvard Munch pain, isn't it, as well? So
it is, yes, something that haunted me for a long time. And James, we were really looking for what Paul Morley termed new pop, that sort of prefab spread, Thomas Dolby. Yeah. The stuff that you and Andrew Collins used to play in The Enemy against grunge.
That's
in
right.
Little corner.
Absolutely. The Enemy hi-fi wars.
And you've been playing everywhere. I mean, I'm trying to look at your tour dates now with a view to coming to see you somewhere soon.
Well, I have invited you to Japan if you fancy.
Well, you know what? I'm just looking at Japan. I think I might come.
Should just do a book reading tour or something in conjoin with it.
All right, well, they know. We'll talk about that. But you've been playing everywhere. Has you been energised by
Except
those?
Sacramento. Anna in North London said, is it worth having the Manics on standby for random questions on a daily basis? So if you ever get any downtime, we'll just keep you in that little box in case anything crops up.
It feels like we've toured the album already, and it was quite brave for us. We're not really ones for playing tons of new tracks before they're out, but by the end of the UK tour, stuff like Let's Go to War, Europa, and Futurology were really going down well.
They sound great stuff to do live, don't they? They really do.
Yeah. It's kind of, we were always aware of it because we're always aware of the deep intake of breath from an audience when you say this is a new track, which kind of collapses the whole building, kind of thing. But it kind of went well this time, so it was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, I'm a big fan, but this is really one of the best things you've ever done. I think it's a fantastic record.
To be honest, a lot of people we trust that have grown up with us, to be honest, have said it's in their top 3 favourite Manics albums, and that's a quite high echelon to get in. So it does feel incredibly positive.
It must all be a joy, because we've talked about it many times before. How close you came to packing it in, really.
Yeah.
And so
numerous times.
So to have, in fact, I think one of the songs I read, Walk Me to the Bridge, was about you thinking, I've had enough of this, wasn't it?
Well, I think when you get older, I think that acceleration of your kind of yin and yang, you're constantly thinking, how can you go on? You know, life catches up with you, parents, kids, families. You know, there's a lot more responsibilities. But to keep that pureness that we do, that genuine love of being in a band, I mean, I think this album gets across how much we love music and how much we love ideas. It's just an album rammed full of ideas.
Well, that's the sense of why it's almost like a perfect Manics record. It's got all your it's got the music that you want to make, and it's got all those ideas, which has always driven you, haven't they? You know, as much as music.
Yeah, and it's just like passing them on. It's almost what we got from growing up with, whether it's, you know, Allen Ginsberg on combat rock or Morrissey talking about Oscar Wilde. You sort of pass on that torch that there's people, there's so much out there, isn't it, to be inspired by.
Yeah, it was kind of cool for me when I was getting some of the lyrics for this album off Nick. It was reminiscent of the experience I had in the Holy Bible, where sometimes I get a lyric off Richey back then, and I'd say, excuse me, but can you explain this reference, Richey boy? And I didn't know anything about, you know, Malevich's Black Square and stuff, so it was kind of reminiscent of the experience of the Holy Bible for me at times.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to play an instrumental. We're going to play, which I absolutely love. This. It's kind of like, I think of it as a krautrock Telstar for the new, Europe.
You two are just full of straplines today.
And also the Simple Minds, your beloved Simple Minds, had a track called Theme for a Great City, didn't it?
It's been a lifelong ambition to actually just match the instrumental narrative that they did, you know, that early Simple Minds did, and to actually get that narrative in there without a lyric is just extremely hard, you know. So kind of like, I think we may have achieved it. And
it's about a city that a Welsh engineer went and set up in.
He did, yeah. He's a Newport guy called John Hughes, and he took all his equipment and set up the steel foundry in Donetsk. There you go, news cycle again.
Yeah,
and it was such an amazing physical achievement what he did, and then he kind of, with a large dollop of hubris, he went and called it Huisovka.
Dreaming a City, Hugh we will play that now. In fact, funny enough, I was just thinking, it just came back to me, one of the last times I saw you guys was in Hyde Park, a Radio 2 thing, and Simple Minds were on the same day.
Oh, yes, they were. James went out drinking with Charlie Birchall that night.
Yeah, charming fellow.
So this, from the new Manic Street Preachers album, Futurology, is called Dreaming a City, Huisovka. And it's great. It's a brilliant record. We warmly recommend it to you. Get all the copies.
Out on the 7th of July. Thanks a lot, guys. See you soon.
Always a pleasure.
See you in Japan.
Take care. Bye.